First contact. The void between stars had never felt so empty to Captain Elise Morgan as she stood on the observation deck of the UES Pathfinder. The massive research vessel drifted silently at the edge of the Kepler 186 system, its powerful sensors probing the darkness for anything of interest. It was 2289, and humanity's relentless push into the stars had brought them farther than their ancestors could have imagined. "Captain, you should see this." Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel's voice crackled over her comm. The excitement in his usually calm tone made her straighten. "On my way," she replied, already moving toward the science bay. The corridors of the Pathfinder were a hive of activity as the crew went about their duties. Most were scientists and researchers, not soldiers. The United Earth Coalition had made it clear that this mission was about discovery, not conquest. When she arrived at the science bay, Patel was hunched over a holographic display, his dark eyes wide with wonder. "We detected it just minutes ago," he said without looking up. "It's unlike anything we've ever encountered." The display showed a massive structure floating in space approximately 2 light hours from their position. It resembled a perfect dodecahedron, each face etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "What am I looking at, Raj?" Morgan asked, leaning closer. "We believe it's an artificial construct," he replied, his fingers dancing across the controls to enhance the image. "The energy signatures are off the charts, but they're stable. And there's something else." He tapped a command, and the display zoomed in on one of the faces. "It's transmitting." Morgan felt a chill run down her spine. In all of humanity's explorations, they had found ruins and remnants of civilizations long extinct, but never anything still active. "Transmitting what?" "That's just it," Patel said, looking up at her with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "It's transmitting in standard binary. Someone or something wanted us to find this." Morgan straightened, her mind racing. Protocol dictated that they should report this finding to Earth Command immediately and await instructions. But that would mean weeks of delay, and she knew other factions would rush to claim the discovery if word got out. "Prepare a team," she decided. "We're going to take a closer look." 6 hours later, Morgan led a small expedition aboard the Pathfinder's auxiliary craft, the Sparrow. The sleek shuttle glided through space toward the alien structure, which loomed larger with each passing minute. "Energy readings are consistent," reported Dr. Sasha Chen, the team's xenophysicist. "No signs of defensive systems, but I'm detecting movement within the structure." "Movement?" Morgan asked sharply. Chen nodded, her expression intense as she studied her instruments. "Like clockwork components shifting. I think it's preparing for something." As they drew closer, the patterns on the structure's surface began to glow with a soft blue light. The effect was mesmerizing, like watching waves on an ocean of stars. "We're being scanned," announced the pilot, Lieutenant Kai Donnelly, his hands steady on the controls despite the tension in his voice. Before Morgan could respond, a beam of light shot out from the structure, engulfing the Sparrow. Everyone froze, expecting the worst, but the ship's systems continued to function normally. "It's a data transmission," Chen said, surprised. "Massive amounts of information are being downloaded into our systems." The beam retracted as suddenly as it had appeared, and the patterns on the structure's surface began to shift more rapidly. The entire construct started to unfold like an impossibly complex origami, revealing a swirling vortex of energy at its core. "What the hell is happening?" Morgan demanded, gripping her seat as the Sparrow rocked from the gravitational disturbance. "It's a gate," Chen whispered, awe replacing fear in her voice. "It's opening a gate." The vortex expanded, and through it came a sight that would forever change humanity's understanding of their place in the universe. Thousands of vessels emerged, each one unlike any spacecraft humans had ever designed. They resembled great birds of prey, their hulls shimmering with the same blue energy that had engulfed the Sparrow. "The data," Chen said, her fingers flying over her console. "It's a star chart and instructions. These ships, They are called the Supernova fleet, and according to this, they're ours now. Morgan could hardly believe what she was hearing. Ours? Why would anyone give us a fleet of advanced starships? Before Chen could answer, a new signal cut through their communications. It wasn't coming from the Supernova fleet or the structure that had summoned them. It was coming from the edge of the system. "Captain," Donnelly called out, his voice tense. "We've got company." The sensors showed a dozen ships approaching rapidly. Unlike the elegant vessels of the Supernova fleet, these were angular and aggressive in design, bristling with what could only be weapons. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. A harsh, guttural voice filled the cabin. "Attention, human vessel. You have activated precursor technology that does not belong to your species. The Krell Dominion claims all precursor artifacts by right of supremacy. Surrender the activation key and withdraw, or face immediate destruction." Morgan exchanged glances with her team. They had no weapons aboard the Sparrow, and the Pathfinder was a research vessel, not a warship. But something told her that the appearance of the Supernova fleet wasn't coincidental. "What does the data say about these ships?" she asked Chen quietly. The scientist was still parsing through the downloaded information. "They're designed to bond with their pilots. Neural interfaces that allow direct control. The ship becomes an extension of the pilot's will." "How do we activate them?" Chen looked up, her eyes wide. "We already have. The scan wasn't just sending data, it was reading our neural patterns. The fleet is waiting for us to take command." Morgan made her decision. "Donnelly, take us to the nearest ship. Chen, figure out how we interface with these vessels. And someone get me a direct line to the Pathfinder. They need to know what's happening." As the Sparrow approached one of the avian ships, its hull seemed to ripple in response. A port opened, inviting them in. "The Krell are powering weapons," Donnelly warned. "Then we'd better hurry," Morgan replied, her jaw set with determination. Inside the alien vessel, they found a chamber unlike anything they had expected. There were no traditional controls, just a single chair in the center of a spherical room whose walls displayed a perfect view of the surrounding space. "This must be the neural interface," Chen said, scanning the chair with her instruments. "According to the data, once someone sits there, they become one with the ship." Morgan didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." "Captain," Chen protested, "we don't know what effect this will have on a human mind." "We don't have time to debate," Morgan replied, already moving toward the chair. "If the Krell open fire, we're all dead anyway." The moment she sat down, the chamber hummed to life. The chair reclined, and tendrils of blue energy wrapped around Morgan's limbs, not restraining but connecting. She gasped as her consciousness expanded. Suddenly, she could feel the ship as if it were her own body. Its systems, its capabilities, its power. And more than that, she could sense the other ships in the fleet, waiting for pilots of their own. Through the ship's sensors, she saw the Krell vessels closing in, their weapons charged and ready to fire. They were going to destroy the Pathfinder and everyone aboard it unless she acted. With a thought, Morgan brought the ship's engines online. The vessel responded instantly, moving with a grace that defied its size. She reached out to the Pathfinder mentally, establishing a communication link. "This is Captain Morgan," she transmitted. "The structure has given us control of these ships. We need pilots. Send everyone who can fly a simulator." The Krell fired the first shot, a beam of searing energy aimed directly at the Pathfinder. Without thinking, Morgan interposed her vessel, activating defenses she hadn't known existed. A shield of blue energy absorbed the attack, leaving the ship unharmed. "Impressive, for a primitive," the Krell commander transmitted. "But you cannot hope to master precursor technology in time to save yourselves." Morgan didn't respond with words. Instead, she unleashed the ship's weapons, not to destroy, but to warn. Pulses of energy streaked past the Krell vessels, missing them by meters, but demonstrating precision that no human weapon could match. "This is your only warning," she finally replied. "The Supernova fleet has chosen humanity as its inheritors. Leave this system, or we will be forced to demonstrate why. The Krell hesitated, clearly surprised by the humans' control over the ancient technology. But their retreat was only tactical. Morgan could sense their determination. They would return, and in greater numbers. As shuttles from the Pathfinder began approaching the other ships in the fleet, Morgan received another data packet from the structure, which was now beginning to close. It contained a star chart marking the locations of more supernova fleets throughout the galaxy, along with a message. The trial begins. Prove yourselves worthy. Morgan understood then that this wasn't just a gift, it was a test. Humanity had been given power beyond their imagination, but also a responsibility. And the Krell were only the first challenge they would face. As the first of her crew bonded with their ships, Morgan felt a surge of determination. Humanity had always reached for the stars, driven by curiosity and courage. Now they had the means to travel farther than ever before, to protect themselves against threats they never knew existed. The supernova fleet was awake, and with it, humanity's destiny among the stars. The Awakening. 3 weeks had passed since the discovery of the supernova fleet, and everything had changed. The UES Pathfinder, once a solitary research vessel, now traveled at the center of a formation of 30 precursor ships, each bonded to a human pilot. The news had reached Earth, sparking a mixture of celebration and fear. Humanity had stumbled upon a power they never imagined existed, but they had also drawn the attention of the Krell Dominion, a vast empire spanning hundreds of star systems. Captain Elise Morgan sat in her quarters aboard the flagship of the fleet, which she had named Prometheus. The neural link between her and the ship had grown stronger with each passing day, allowing her to feel its systems as extensions of her own body. Sometimes, when she slept, she dreamed of flying through endless stars, free from the constraints of flesh. A chime at her door brought her back to reality. "Enter," she called. Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel stepped inside, his expression a mixture of excitement and concern. "Captain, we've decoded more of the precursor data. You need to see this." They made their way to the ship's core chamber, where Dr. Sasha Chen was working with a team of scientists to understand the vast repository of knowledge downloaded from the dodecahedron structure. "We've been focusing on the wrong thing," Chen said without preamble as they entered. "We thought the supernova fleet was just a collection of advanced warships, but it's so much more than that." She gestured to a holographic display showing the internal systems of one of the ships. These vessels aren't just designed for combat. They're terraforming engines, construction platforms, and data archives all in one. The precursors built them as tools of creation, not destruction. Morgan frowned. "Then why give them weapons at all?" "Protection," Chen replied. "The precursors believe that the power to create must be defended. But here's where it gets interesting." She brought up a new display showing a genetic sequence. "We found this embedded in the data. It's a genetic marker, human DNA." "What are you saying?" Morgan asked, though she was beginning to suspect the answer. "The precursors knew about us," Chen said, her voice filled with wonder. "Or at least, they predicted our evolution. The dodecahedron was programmed to activate when a species with this specific genetic marker reached a certain level of technological advancement." "So the fleet was always meant for us?" Patil asked, incredulous. "Not just us," Chen corrected. "The precursors left these caches throughout the galaxy, each keyed to different species. It's like a galactic inheritance, divided among potential heirs." Morgan considered this information. "And the Krell? Where do they fit in?" Chen's expression darkened. "According to what we've translated, the Krell were once candidates themselves. They found their own precursor cache thousands of years ago, but instead of using the technology as intended, they'd weaponized it. They've been hunting down other caches ever since, destroying or subverting any species that might access them." A chill ran down Morgan's spine. "They're eliminating the competition." "Exactly," Chen nodded. "And now they're coming for us." As if summoned by her words, an alert sounded throughout the ship. Morgan closed her eyes, connecting more deeply with Prometheus to access its sensors. What she saw made her blood run cold. Krell battle fleet, she announced, opening her eyes. At least 50 vessels, approaching from multiple vectors. They'll reach us in less than an hour. Patel was already moving toward the door. I'll prepare the fleet. We should make a run for Earth. Bring these ships home where they can be protected. No, Morgan said firmly. Earth doesn't have the defenses to repel a Krell invasion. We'd be leading them straight to our homeworld. Then what's the alternative? Chen asked. We have 30 ships against 50, and most of our pilots are still learning how to operate them. Morgan was silent for a moment, communing with Prometheus. The ship's vast database contained information about the Krell, their tactics, their weaknesses, and something else, something the precursors had hidden deep within the fleet's systems. There's another way, she said finally. Prometheus just showed me. The Supernova fleet isn't just 30 ships. That's only what's been awakened so far. The dodecahedron was a key, meant to activate the first wave. But there are more hidden throughout this system. More ships? Patil asked, hope kindling in his eyes. Thousands, Morgan replied. Dormant, waiting for a specific signal from the awakened vessels. But to generate that signal, we need to synchronize all 30 ships in a precise formation. Chen looked skeptical. That level of coordination would be nearly impossible, even for experienced pilots. Not with the neural link, Morgan countered. If we can deepen the connection, become more fully integrated with the ships, we can move as one entity. That's dangerous, Chen warned. The human brain isn't designed to process that much information. You could lose yourselves. Morgan's expression hardened. What's the alternative? We run and doom Earth, or we stay and fight a battle we can't win. At least this gives us a chance. In the end, there was no real choice. The 30 pilots gathered in their respective ships, forming a perfect circle in space. The Krell fleet approached inexorably, their weapons charged for the killing blow that would remove humanity from the list of precursor heirs. Morgan sat in Prometheus's neural interface chair, reaching out with her mind to the other pilots. Focus on my signal, she instructed. Don't resist the connection. Let the ships guide us. One by one, the pilots surrendered themselves more fully to their vessels. Morgan felt each new connection like a light igniting in her consciousness. Soon, she could see through 30 pairs of eyes, feel the hum of 30 ships as if they were her own body. It was overwhelming, but also exhilarating, like being part of something greater than herself. They're in range, Paddle reported through the link. His voice seemed to come from both outside and inside her mind. Weapons locked on our position. Hold formation, Morgan commanded. Just a few more seconds. The 30 ships began to glow with blue energy, the same energy that had emanated from the dodecahedron. The space between them filled with arcs of power, forming a perfect geometric pattern. The first Krell barrage lanced toward them, only to be absorbed by the energy field. Prometheus informed Morgan that they couldn't maintain this defense for long. The signal had to be completed. Now, Morgan cried, pushing her consciousness fully into the neural network. The world dissolved around her, replaced by a vista of stars and flowing data. She could feel the other pilots with her, their minds merging with the collective consciousness of the fleet. Together, they generated the signal, a complex sequence of energy pulses that rippled outward through the system. For a moment, nothing happened. The Krell launched a second barrage, and this time, some of the energy broke through, damaging several ships in the formation. Then the darkness of space began to shimmer as if the very fabric of reality was being distorted. From the void emerged ship after ship, identical to those in the Supernova fleet but dormant, their systems inactive. The awakening protocol is incomplete. Chen's voice came through the link. The ships have appeared, but they need pilots. Morgan understood what needed to be done. The precursors had designed the fleet to bond with compatible minds, but they hadn't anticipated the urgency of humanity's situation. There weren't enough human pilots to control thousands of ships. We need to create a distributed consciousness, Morgan realized. Split our minds across multiple vessels. It was dangerous, perhaps fatally so. But as the Krell closed in for the kill, it was their only option. Everyone, focus on extending your consciousness, Morgan instructed. Don't try to control the ships, become them. She led by example, reaching out beyond Prometheus to the dormant vessels nearby. To her surprise, they responded eagerly, as if they had been waiting for this moment. One by one, the ships activated, their systems coming online. The Krell hesitated, clearly confused by the sudden appearance of a fleet that vastly outnumbered their own. Their commander opened a channel. "This deception will not save you," the alien voice growled. "Surrender the precursor technology, and we may allow your species to survive as servants." Morgan answered not with words but with action. With a thought, she coordinated an attack from 100 ships simultaneously, sending precision strikes against the Krell vessels. The once dormant fleet moved in perfect synchronization, each ship an extension of the collective human consciousness. The Krell fought back fiercely, their weaponry devastating, but increasingly desperate, as they found themselves surrounded. Their formation broke as ships attempted to retreat, only to find escape routes cut off by more supernova vessels appearing from the void. In the heart of the battle, Morgan made a discovery. As the neural network expanded, incorporating more and more ships, she began to sense echoes of other minds, not human and not Krell, but ancient. The precursors had left more than their technology behind. They had preserved fragments of their consciousness within the fleet. These fragments began to commune with the human pilots, sharing knowledge and memories that had been locked away for millennia. The precursors had not disappeared. They had transcended physical form, becoming one with their creation. And now, they were merging with humanity, creating something new, a hybrid consciousness that combined human creativity with precursor wisdom. The Krell commander must have sensed this transformation. Abomination. The alien screamed over the communication channel. "You corrupt the sacred technology with your primitive minds." "No," Morgan replied, her voice resonating from 1,000 ships simultaneously. "We're fulfilling its purpose. The precursors didn't want their technology used for conquest. They wanted it to bring life, to foster cooperation between species." As if to emphasize her point, the supernova fleet began to change. The warlike aspects receded, replaced by configurations better suited to exploration, creation, and communication. The weapons didn't disappear. The capacity for defense remained, but they were no longer the ship's primary function. "This is your last chance," Morgan told the Krell. "Retreat and reconsider your path. The precursor legacy doesn't belong to any one species. It was meant to be shared." For a moment, it seemed the Krell might continue fighting. Then, without warning, their remaining ships turned and accelerated away from the battle, jumping to faster-than-light travel as soon as they cleared the system's gravity well. The immediate threat had passed, but Morgan knew it wasn't over. The Krell would return, perhaps with allies drawn from other aggressive species who feared what humanity might become with the precursor technology. As the neural network stabilized, the pilots began to disengage, returning to their individual consciousness. But something of the collective remained, a connection that transcended physical distance, allowing them to communicate and coordinate across vast spaces. Back aboard Prometheus, Morgan met with her officers and scientists to assess their situation. The human pilots looked changed, their eyes reflecting the stars in a way they hadn't before. "What happens now?" Patil asked. He, like the others, seemed simultaneously exhausted and energized, as if he had touched something beyond human comprehension. "We learn," Morgan replied. "The precursor memories show that there are more catches throughout the galaxy, more species who are meant to inherit this technology. Some have already found their legacy. Others, like us, are just discovering it." "And the Krell?" Chen asked. "They're afraid," Morgan said. They've spent millennia believing they were the rightful heirs to the precursor legacy. But the truth is, the precursors never intended for any one species to claim everything. They wanted diversity, cooperation, growth. She looked out at the fleet surrounding them. Thousands of ships, each one a marvel of technology and consciousness. We have a choice now. We can use this power to defend ourselves, to carve out a human empire among the stars. Or we can do what the precursors intended, reach out to other inheritor species, build something greater together than any of us could achieve alone. The decision would not be hers alone. Earth would have to be consulted, and there would be those who argued for using the fleet's power for conquest or domination. But as she stood there, still connected to the whispers of ancient minds and the thoughts of her fellow pilots, Morgan knew what path she would advocate. Humanity had always dreamed of the stars, reaching outward with hope and determination despite their limitations. Now those limitations have been transcended in ways they never imagined. The Supernova fleet was more than a collection of ships. It was the next stage in human evolution, a bridge between what they had been and what they might become. And as the first tendrils of the collective consciousness reached Earth, connecting with the minds of those ready to join the awakening, Morgan felt a certainty it went beyond logic or evidence. The trial had only just begun, but humanity would prove worthy of the legacy they had inherited. The stars awaited, and they would face them together.